Okay, hello everyone, good evening and good day, and may all blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha be with all of you. So let us begin our bi-weekly sutra discussion by paying respect to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Dear Venerable Bhantes, dear Bhikkhunis, dear friends in Dhamma, so it's a great joy for us to have this spiritual gathering during this difficult time of the world. And I'm very happy to let you know that today, by this week, it is our 1 year anniversary of this bi-weekly sutra discussion. And it was a great privilege for all of us it was such a unity and brotherhood, sisterhood that we built during this difficult time. We did something meaningful. And through this discussion, we were able to shed light to the world. We were able to bring hope and light to people, those who are watching us from different parts of the world. They got a lot of relief through this discussion. So I feel very happy for being able to run this program together with all of you, and with the gratitude and respect, I would like to acknowledge your service to the world. And also, today is the New Year Day in East Asian countries, China, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, South Korea, North Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, and those parts of the world. They are celebrating New Year, Year of the Tiger. And so I would like to wish Happy New Year to our friends who are celebrating the Chinese New Year. So dear Venerable Sirs and the Venerable Bhikkhunis, today let us pay our respect and gratitude to one of the most beloved teachers of the world, the most venerable Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who said goodbye to us 9 days ago in Vietnam. So at the age of 95, we all know who Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh is and was. We all have some sort of memories, and I'm pretty sure today you're going to share your stories. We have some venerables who have met him. So before we pay our tribute, I would like to introduce our venerable monks and nuns. So today we have the presence of Bante Yoga Vacharahula joining us from Washington, D.C. And then we have Bante Samita Ratana joining us from UK, London, UK, from Oxford. And we have two venerable nuns, Venerable Dhammadinda and Venerable Satima, joining us from Virginia, USA. We have Bante Uparatana joining us from Maryland. Then we have Venerable Adisila joining us from California. And then we have Bante Jinananda joining us from Ottawa, Canada. Then we have Bante Vangsananda joining us from, he used to join us from Seattle, but today he moved to Los Angeles. And then we have Bante Kusala joining us from here in Toronto. And then we have another Bante Saranapala, my name, joining us from British Columbia, Canada. And then we have Bante Nalaka joining us from California, I think Los Angeles. Yeah. And then we have Bante Vimala Jyoti, Bante Nanda Aloka, and Venerable Suwana, and the Venerable Dr. Sivali. But we cannot see them here, but they are here with us. Let us talk about the most venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. I know I had a brief conversation with Venerable Adisila. You actually went to Plum Village, and you have taken, I think, a retreat, meditation retreat, and you got some training from him. I would like to hear your story. And also after this, I think the format of this discussion is, you know, if you would like to pay a tribute or talk about his simple teachings, please raise your hand. In that way, you know, I would invite you. So let us begin with Venerable Adisila, because you told me that you got training under him. So what was your experience, Venerable Adisila?
Yes, thank you, Bante. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So over 20 years ago, I was a fairly new monk, and I was in the Bay Area, Fremont and San Jose, and we have the community relation with Vietnamese and Sri Lankan and Burmese and Thai, and I am pretty integrated. I go to all the different temples and try to share community with them. And one of the Vietnamese temple, Chùa Duc Vien in San Jose, they said, when I asked about going to Asia, they said, "Oh, what about going to Plum Village to stay with Thich Nhat Hanh? He's a very old monk, and you might not have another opportunity, and we will sponsor your trip." And so I had known of Thich Nhat Hanh. I had read many of his books and heard his teachings, and I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to go. And so I went and spent the winter retreat in Plum Village with the community of interbeing and Thich Nhat Hanh's integrated monastic community. I stayed in the upper hamlet with the men, the bhikkhus, and also the lay practitioners that were staying. I think there was over 200, maybe 300 people total between the two hamlets. So a very big gathering for winter. And Thich Nhat Hanh, he was able to work with all of these monastics, and he was like a grandfather to all of the community. And there were some challenges. You know, they had some problems with the bhikkhunis and also some stress with the bhikkhus, and he would gather people together and console and comfort and talk. What they would say, shine the light. They have several different integrated practices where they help to address issues. And so they would shine the light on an individual or come together with love and compassion and address these issues. And I walked many miles with the teacher, and I consider him a beloved teacher to me. I consider him one of my root teachers. I was the only Theravada monk there. There is one other monk that came from the Theravada tradition, but he became a member of the order of interbeing there. And so he was now practicing as they were. We had one monk visiting from India who wanted to network with Thich Nhat Hanh's community. And I knew him and met with him later in India. He was from Mysore. And so I think it was a very good experience. It is an integrated community with Christian and Catholics and some people from all around the world, Australia, all over Europe, America, Canada. Many people were there. And it was around this time of year, the Thet, we had a big festival. And I reflect on that as being a very joyous time for the community. At that time, maybe 500 people showed up. It was a lot of people, and a lot of work for the monastics. We have to prepare meals and get the area ready. So I really enjoyed it. And that's my experience from Plum Village over 3 months. And I'm still reflecting on it. After I heard Thich Nhat Hanh passed, I was on my way to San Diego, and I pretty much headed straight to Deer Park Monastery on that weekend and joined in the memorial. I reached out to them and asked, and they said, yes, please come. There was, hundreds of people there. And, some of them recognized me maybe from over 20 years ago. Some for sure did. And we just shared our joy of having been with the beloved teacher and wishing for his continuation and for his community to continue as well. So it was a very good experience.
Yeah,
and I have a pin that I'm going to send you. They have the memorial pin.
Yeah.
And it's written in Thai's script, and it means
can you show it again? Can you show it again?
Yeah, it's
okay.
So it's coming and going in freedom.
Okay.
And it's an old tradition, they said, that dates from Confucius' time to have these memorial pins. And I wear the one that I'm keeping close to my heart so I can reflect on what I want to do as I continue to practice. And I hope everybody else can, reflect on how great of a teacher Thai was, and will will continue to be a major influence in the Buddhist Sangha for generations, I'm sure.
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Venerable Adesila, for sharing your experience. Actually, you were so fortunate to meet him and receive teachings directly from him, and it was your good karma. Actually, here in he visited Canada, some years ago. I actually planned to go and meet him, but another spiritual commitment led me into different directions. So I missed that opportunity. And also, when I went to France first time, it was my wish to go to Plum Village to meet him, but I also missed that opportunity. But through his teachings, I see who Thai is. Of course, he's fondly known as Thai. People address him as Thai. So I read his first book, The Living Buddha, Living Christ. Actually, that changed my life. And I also read some comments made by people. There are thousands of comments, and it's interesting how they said their life completely changed through his simple teachings. So it's a great loss for us. So thank you, Venerable Adesila. So now we have Bante Nalaka from California raised his hand. I know, Venerable Nalaka, you received some teachings and training from one of his organizations located in California, Deer Monastery, something like that. So what was your experience?
Deer Park.
Deer Park.
Yes, sadhu. Sadhu.
Yeah.
Greetings, dear venerables. I don't see many recognizable names or anyone who knows me, but Bante Sudaso knows me well, and Ayasoma and Bante Varpanyo. And I'm grateful to be here, grateful for the teachings I received from Master Thich Hanh. When I was a layperson, when my journey began in 2018, I went to Deer Park Monastery. Prior to that, I went to a Tibetan temple, but I wanted to get deep into meditation. And at that time, I was looking at Theravada, early Buddhism, and Mahayana. And I saw, Thich Nhat Hanh's interesting. He always quotes from the Agamas of the Pali Nikayas, and he connects it with the Mahayana, the Heart Sutras. So actually, before I share what I want to share, this is one of my favorite gathas or mindfulness verses from Thich Nhat Hanh. Words can travel many miles. May I listen deeply and use loving speech. May they be as beautiful as gems and lovely as flowers. So that's the type of gatha I was exposed to as a layperson coming into Deer Park with the beginner's mind and the naive mind about practices and expectations and so on. And so there I learned something very simple: opening and closing the door zenfully, as one of his students, Tai Ngo Hong, aka Brother Freedom, taught us in our group. We had a day dedicated to simple practices like that, opening and closing the door zenfully, and using mindfulness verses before we ate, during eating, and after eating. And even though I got away from those practices, now I don't use much mental verbalization. I see the beauty and the power of bringing the mind to the present moment through verbalization, intentional, skillful verses to train the mind and to calm the mind. So I didn't meet Thai in person. I met him through his books like you did. And also through his senior students who are also teachers, Thai Phap Hai in Australia and Thai Chan Phap Tween, who's in Vietnam, I believe, right now still. And they taught me what they embodied from Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. Some of the books that really made a profound impression upon me were Old Path, White Clouds, The Heart of the Buddhist Teachings, and Zen Keys. I didn't know at the time, understanding our mind. I didn't know that actually I wasn't supposed to be reading those books in the Plum Village tradition until like the second or third year as a monk, and I was a layperson. So one of the monks told me, he said, actually, that book is advanced, brother. I was like, oh, I gravitated to his scholarly books. So I didn't know that. I didn't really read Living Buddha, Living Christ, or some of his pieces every step. I never read those books. I'll dive right into his scholastic books. So when we say Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, you hear people say his teachings are very simple. Yes, some of his teachings are simple, but a lot of his teachings are very profound and conciliatory and multidisciplinary. So that's all I wanted to share, just a few minutes in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Venerable Nalaka, for sharing your experience. And we have two hands raised by two Venerable monks. First, I would like to invite Bhante Uparatana from Washington, D.C. Bhante, have you met the Thai or the Thich Nhat Hanh? You have to unmute yourself, Bhante. Unmute.
Yes, I'm so fortunate. 25 years ago, I met him in New York, upstate New York.
Wow.
Yeah, and he visited that Mahayana temple and Vietnamese temple. I have good, very close friends, Vietnamese monks when they living in Virginia, Lee Highway. They took me over there, and I spent a couple of days and with the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. And Bhante Gunaratana, my teacher, were talking about him many events. And even though I seen that his some books as a poetry, very nice and very simple language, and we're very happy to read that thing, even though we are learning English, and that also part of that, and at the same time philosophical teaching. And he always talking about mindfulness, and that thing's very important topic. And meanwhile, I went over there. I didn't met before him, and my Vietnamese friends were talking and highly respecting him. And I was so young those days. And then the early morning after the breakfast, then everybody line up, because this is a very famous topic about walking, mindfully.
Yeah.
I thought any mantra or any specific term we have to use it, but nothing. Just mindfully take a walk, and all that monastic other people and lay people, all together we take a very nice simple walk. That's the first time I get the walking meditation experience with him as a group meditation. And after that, and I heard he's living in many years in Paris. I didn't get a chance to see him, but it is a very unfortunate, and he's passing away, but he did the remaining so many his Dhamma work, hard work, very helpful to us. Maybe 100 some books he written, and very helpful to us to repair, and that his teaching. He is even though we thought he's a Mahayana monk, but no, he's a very traditional Theravada tradition. He emphasizing many Theravada topic, his talk, and very well, nicely explaining very well, very remarkable. And however, I wish him to the peace and wonderful journey. He's until liberate from Nirvana. We wish him to happiness and peace. Thank you, Venerable Saranapala, given opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante Uparatana. Actually, you were so fortunate. You had good karma to meet him in person. And in fact, he's also known as the father of mindfulness in the Western world, because he emphasized a lot on mindfulness meditation. So thank you, Bhante Uparatana, for sharing your experience. I know there are 4 hands raised, but before I call your name, we have a most senior monk here, Bhante Yogavacha Rahula. Actually, he Bhante Yogacharya Rahula, you met him in Germany, you said. And so as a senior monk, you also an author of multiple books. And Venerable Thich Nhat has authored more than 100 books. So what was the experience when you met him, Bhante Rahula?
I'm sorry, I didn't have those little yellow hands there. I never knew about those little yellow hands, and on my computer, I don't know where the button was to put that hand, so I have to use my regular hand.
That's why that I knew. That's why I picked you up.
Well, actually, the first time I heard about Thich Nhat Hanh was back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I read his book, The Miracle of Mindfulness. That was one of the first books that I think became very popular, and it was it was about some letters that he had written to some of his disciples, but it was talking about just the miracle of mindfulness itself, and I really could relate to that because in my own experience and in practicing and developing mindfulness, there's it really is a miracle, especially when you have cultivated deeper levels of mindfulness to see what kind of miraculous things arise with that kind of mindfulness. And also his teachings about being present in every moment, that also is a very important teaching of mindfulness, and even in of course in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and the teachings on the postures and all of one's movements, and really getting the mind to come and dwell in the present moment. Now, my experience, as I mentioned to you at the beginning, before we started this program, that I had been to Plum Village back in the early 90s, because I was traveling through France with a couple of Buddhist people. But unfortunately, he was not in Plum Village at the time, but I stayed there one night and had met some of the Sangha members there. But the time that I did meet him was in Germany, in Hamburg, because he used to do travel and give programs in big auditoriums and places throughout Germany, and of course many other places too. But I was in Hamburg at a Buddhist center because I also used to go to Germany regularly every year to conduct some retreats, and he happened to be staying 1 or 2 nights in the same center that I was at in Hamburg. And that's the first time I had met him in person. And they were giving a program in a big auditorium in Hamburg, and he invited me to come along on their bus. So they had a bus because they had this whole group of about, there was probably at least 20 or more monks and nuns who were accompanying him on these tours. And they also played music as part of his tours and auditoriums. It was a very nice program, and he would give a lecture, give a 45-minute or so Dhamma talk. And I remember that night that I was there and attending his program, he gave a talk on the 5 hindrances. So he's talking very much, in very important aspects of Theravada teachings too, and how to be mindful of hindrances when they arise and to apply the appropriate efforts to skillfully, overcome them. And then as part of that program, everybody was on a stage, and I didn't really want to go up on the stage, but he kind of insisted to me to come up on the stage and sit with the rest of his monks. And somebody mentioned I was the only Theravada monk there. So I sat up on the stage, and they were also playing some music. So they have some musicians amongst their monks and nuns playing some guitars and singing, and they were doing chanting. And but I had the time to, on the bus back and forth from the from where we were staying to the hall, he came and talked with me a little bit, but it wasn't any deep conversations. It was just kind of some polite, just some little talk about, who we are, or who he asked me who I was, and things like that. So that was my sort of limited direct experience with him that one night. Actually, he stayed 2 days in that center, but he was busy doing other things, and I was also doing some things. But at least for that one night, I had these few hours of a kind of intimate time to be together with him and his sangha members. So that's about the extent of my direct personal involvement with him. Of course, Thich Nhat Hanh, he became famous during the Vietnam War when he was protesting against some of the things happening in the, in the Vietnam War, and he wasn't too much in favor of the American position in Vietnam. I was a soldier actually in Vietnam at the time I was there, but I was, I wasn't really a Buddhist then, but actually in Vietnam is the first time I ever saw a Theravada Buddhist monk. And at the time, I didn't even know much about what monks were. This was in 1970. So, but there were a few Theravada Buddhist monks there, and I saw them walking along the road. But then later, when I got out of the army, and then he was becoming more popular here in America. And of course, he was nominated for the Nobel Prize by Dr. Martin Luther King. Back in, I guess it was in the late 70s or so. But that book, especially The Miracle of Mindfulness, and I haven't read all of his books, but especially as you've already mentioned, his teaching on mindfulness, because that's the most important mental quality that we can develop. And mindfulness even comes before concentration, and in most of the the lists of the mental development and so on. And it's through even the practice of being mindful that we can gain concentration. And that's why right mindfulness comes before even developing, attaining jhanas or right concentration, if you're following that systematic training. Because unless we're aware of our hindrances, or unless we're mindful of our hindrances, the things that actually block us from concentration, then we're not going to gain concentration. And that's why the mindfulness is so important.
Yeah.
I think that was one of his most, probably what he's known for the most, as already some of you have mentioned, his practice. And bringing it into very simple ways, like, he's especially known for this, going on mindful walks, as Venerable Adi Sila had mentioned his experience in Plum Village. Unfortunately, he wasn't there in Plum Village when I was there, so I didn't really have an experience like that. But anyway, so that's just what I wanted to share with you on my own experience.
No, thank you, Bhante Rahula, for sharing your own experience. I'm pretty sure Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh was happy to meet you as well. And I think he has shown his respect to you by inviting you onto the stage. So that, that's a kind of spiritual quality we all need to have. It was a part of the inclusiveness, The power of inclusion is very important, the unity. So we will be doing more reflections on his teachings later on. So now we have 3 hands raised by 3 venerable monks. Bhante Kusala, what's your reflection about Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh?
Thank you, Bhante. So to Bhante Rahula, the yellow hands are at the end of the screen at the bottom, where there is a record button and then reactions button. And the first one is lower hand or raise your hand. So I hope you'll find it and we can hear you sooner with that.
You click the reactions icon and then you
Yeah.
find the yellow hand?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Since we do everything on Zoom now,
Yeah, for
useful.
some reason that, because I don't often ask questions on the Zoom, people ask me questions when I'm conducting some program.
So anyways, I like to begin with something Bhante Sarlapal shared with me on the day that Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh passed away. The following day, actually, we were having tea in the morning in the dining area, and he said, it feels like some light from the world has gone. And I was also feeling it that way, but I didn't have the language to kind of express it, and I resonated with his expression. And I felt like that is so true. That's how I have been feeling about his path. We were not feeling sad. We knew it was coming. We knew it was a nature. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was false news that Thai has passed away, and I even shared that in Facebook, and then I deleted it immediately, knowing that it was not true. So he had a couple of more years to bless the world. And Venerable Adisela mentioned about, shine the light meetups, I believe, with other people, that Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh had the time to meet all these monastic members and lay people and shine, help them shine brighter wherever they came from. So in that, he was a light to the world, and he was shining brighter for nearly a century. And we can see that many teachers, become famous and become known for their work, and he was one of them. So we placed him in the same kind of recognition and place as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh. When we think about great teachers, although they, like Venerable Uparatana Nayak Hamduru mentioned, that we are, we represent Theravada tradition, but we also respect the fact that these other venerable monks, leaders in the society, they are also doing great, sometimes greater than some Theravada monks do. So that's an interesting point that made me think about, what the Buddha said. When the Buddha passed away, he said, Dhamma Vinaya will be the teacher. He didn't name any senior monk as a teacher. So there were many qualified monks, but the Buddha said, take Dhamma and Vinaya, discipline and doctrine, as a teacher. So any monk who adhere to these, teachings of the Buddha can shine brighter and also be a light to the world. So I remember having this calendar that was from 2006, and this is a calendar from the Zen tradition. And whenever I saw it, I would think about Thich Nhat Hanh, although his image was not there. The calendar was beautiful. It had pictures of little monks doing various daily activities. Although it was, I was living in a different year and the calendar has expired, but I loved these images, the simplicity it had. So I still have it in Sri Lanka, in my temple. And that is how the teachings of these teachers spread to the world, not just by YouTube talks or anything, but through simple images, poems, and some, basically through practice. So every now and then I would watch some videos of Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, and I find the interview with Oprah Winfrey being one of the most popular ones. In it, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh responds to her about the self-immolation in Vietnam during Vietnam War. And he said it was not an act of suicide, it was an act of compassion. And he said he was not promoting it, but he was just, he sees it as a way of these monks protesting and wanting, getting attention. Getting attention was harder at that time. So these monks were protesting for peace. So this was, I think, one way to kind of cleanse that image that, monks are suicidal, monks are destructive. Somehow him being in a position as a leader, responding to these things in a way that delivered the right message. So I like to end with the poetry part. I think if we don't bring that up, I think that, we'll be missing some component of his life. So this is a poem I found online. Please Call Me by My True Names by Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. It's slightly longer, but I like to read it anyways. So here it goes. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I'm still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I'm a member of a politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. I think with compassion, we can solve any problem, any argument we have. And silently, I think peace arises in that moment. So with that, I will end for now. Thank you, Bhante.
Oh, thank you, Bhante Kusala, for beautifully reciting this poem by the Most Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. It is a beautiful and very profound the poem, I think it has so much essence that we can incorporate into our life. So I think our venerable monks are going to share more of his teachings later on. So now we have Venerable Samitratana joining us from Oxford, UK, and the Venerable Samitratana, what's the reflection on the teachings of the Most Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh?
Okay, thank you very much, Bante, Theravada, most honorable Mahasangha. So I think first and foremost, it is a great peace and joy to attend this very grateful event, which is commemorating the great Zen Master, Thich Nhat Hanh. So today I selected one of the most prestigious and very philosophical perspectives amongst the world publications. So entitled The World We Have, a Buddhist Approach to Peace and Ecology by Thich Nhat Hanh. So in terms of content, this book talks about the collective awakening of human mind, which is very profound and philosophic. So that's why I chose this book more interestingly. So the collective awakening of human mind, according to Thich Nhat Hanh, he said 5 steps: the bells of human mindfulness and the global ethics and the diet for a mindful planet and nature and non-violence and the overcoming fear. These kinds of components he has talked about very well indeed. No doubts and no any debatable thoughts regarding that. Then I chose to talk about the one topic specifically, the diet for a mindful planet. So in my view, this is the central argument I wanted to talk about. I think this seems to be a very much pragmatic and practical solution to today's global energy crisis and global warming and some catastrophic climate changes. Indeed, yes, I think that. So I would necessarily agree some thoughts of Thich Nhat Hanh in this book. The first one, he said, mindful consumption to preserve future. So just one citation, his own words, he said, we have to eat in mindfulness. Otherwise, we will be eating flesh of our own children. Then mindful eating can cultivate seeds of compassion. So there is a very hidden meaning behind this interpretation, because today we can see very well there is a precise problem: overpopulation and overconsumption all around the world. Then this is the real practical solution instead of these kinds of global crisis. Then we have to improve mindful consumption and mindful eating with our day-to-day life. This is very smooth, relaxing, and charming. Then secondly, he talked about manifestation of individualism, because this is the greatest problem around these days. Many humanistic rules and regulations standing upon against that, because they say we have the right to live our own lives, but it seems to be very kind of extreme or very kind of brutal and drastic thoughts. But the Buddhism and Thich Nhat Hanh recommends to say we have to come to the middle path or common ground in reminding the humanism and naturalism in favor of loving kindness, compassion, generosity, and so many spiritual thoughts. Then he talked about the 2 kinds of joy, then healing and nourishing joy and destructive joy. Very simply, in other words, I can say positive and negative energies. Yes, so he has talked about very simply and plainly. It is very clear that. So afterwards, he talks about four types of food. Then how to manage and balance human mundane life, which is parallel to sustainable developmental world. Then we have to consider about material food, which means kabalinkarahar, then sensory impressions, which means pasahar. Then we are always eating through human eyes, ears, nose, body, and consciousness. Then intentional volition, which means manosanchetanikahara. And finally, vijnanahara, consciousness. Then Thich Nhat Hanh widely and wisely explained very well how to manage these four types of food in our daily life. So it is really pragmatic and really practical to apply to this society to overcome this global crisis. Finally, in this chapter, he coming to wind up these kinds of thoughts, how he say, with the citation, without mindfulness, we are like a cow without a skin. And we allow many toxins to penetrate us and destroy us. So all in all, I think Thich Nhat Hanh has so extensively talked the concept of mindfulness to avoid human hindrances and human troubles in daily life. So I think today we can get these teachings to figure out this global energy crisis today in terms of global overpopulation and overconsumption and many catastrophic climate issues around us. Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Venerable Samidaratna, for beautifully sharing his the teachings, the essence of the mindfulness practice. You know, as we read his works, his practices, I think it is completely based on the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, isn't it? And like, you know, you can cultivate mindfulness in all postures, you know, you name it, you know, whatever the posture you assume, the sitting or walking or standing or lying down or even eating. This is also part of the Sati Sampajanya Bhavana, isn't it? So I think he popularized that practice in a very simple way. I think he emphasized on that a lot. Even when he says this mindfulness practice is part of, I think, the popular saying, I have arrived, I am home. Not in the past or in the future. I'm right here. So thank you, Venerable Samidaratna, for sharing your reflections with us. So next, Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa, Canada. Bhante Jinananda, what's your reflection about Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh?
Thank you, Venerable Sanapal, and greetings to all monks and nuns and those who listen to this wonderful Dhamma conference. I think get many good things about Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. Let me begin by saying that Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh is the monk I least approach because of the name. Actually, it was very difficult for me to pronounce his name. So that I was reluctant to read, of course, quote his books in my Dhamma talk, but what he was doing was not that difficult and very easy to follow. So I was reading some of his book later, as I found they are very pragmatic and practical, so that for me, he's a Buddhist monk. I don't recognize him as a Theravada or Mahayana or any other. He's a real Buddhist monk who internalized the teachings of the Buddha in a simple form in every kind of people. So in my experience, I always think that some monks come to this world from nowhere and explain the Buddha's teaching in a simplest form for many people to understand. Therefore, Thich Nhat Hanh is an icon of Buddhist work, definitely. He has made the platform for young bhikkhus like us to think about what directions we should go in order to serve the world. In the meantime, we find our own happiness and peace. So the picture you have selected, Bhante, is very meaningful. He has passed away. He's no more now, but the light he has given to the world is dispelling the darkness of ignorance of many minds. So that picture is very meaningful. That should be said very clearly, because he has given the light of the Buddha's teaching to many lives. When we look at his service to the world, I don't know how to explain everything, but to me, he is one of the greatest teachers, because by reading discourses, I always think how I should tell this to people. And then I look at some books written by Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, and the other person I used to go is Bhante Gunaratana. So comparatively, he was a great person to me, though I never met him. As Bhante Kusala said, the way he explained the Dhamma during that interview with Oprah is very clear that the Buddha's teaching is deep and profound, and we need to work hard to get into right tune of the Dhamma. But if you understand the Dhamma, you can deliver it well in a simple form. So as a young bhikkhu, I always appreciate his character. It is actually a full, box of everything, I would say. And the way he empowers us in the Dhamma is magical. As you sent Bhante names of the books we started reading, and one of the interesting book I found is The Art of Power. So in that book, what he says is really important, and I invite everyone to read those books he actually wrote, especially this Power of Art. And I selected one paragraph of that book where he talks about how we should empower ourselves in order to win not the world, but ourselves. That is the most important. The Buddha's teaching tells us to win ourselves, our mind, dispelling darkness of ignorance along with the other unwholesomeness is the real battle for us. So he is dealing with that. So he says in that book, this wonderful thing, what most people call power, Buddhists call craving. The 5 cravings are for wealth, fame, sex, fancy food, and lot of sleep. In Buddhism, we speak of the 5 true powers, 5 kinds of energy. The 5 powers are faith, diligence, mindfulness, concentration, and insight or wisdom. The 5 powers are the foundation of real happiness. They are based on concrete practices we will learn in this book. So it is so simple, and the way he come to a point by telling that what Buddhism offers us for empowering ourselves is really nice. A lot of people are looking for wealth and fame and dignity by doing so many things in order to find peace and happiness. But what he is saying, to invite people to come to find happiness, is something otherwise. So the 5 powers, as mentioned by the Buddha, is well taken by him and delivered it well. So that this is where we station on in order to respect Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. And I really appreciate those disciples of him because the way he acted at the passing away of Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh is really exemplary. They were showing that what Thich Nhat Hanh taught during his lifetime has been absorbed well. And these 5 hours have been, making that icon, Thich Nhat Hanh, in the Buddhist world, even to influence other people into the right track. So that as a young bhikkhu, I am following his teaching, and I try best to teach many things through his explanation, because I want to see the Buddha through him, and I want to clear the Dhamma more and more through his teaching. And I think I found a very easy ground in following his teaching. There are many things that we can share. Finally, in this first opportunity, I just want to say this. The Dhammapada in the Bhikkhu Vagga, Buddha clearly said that who Bhikkhu should be. Santa Kayo, Santa Vacho, Santa Kayo, Santa Vacho, Santa Va Susamahito, Vanta Lokamiso Bhikkhu Upasantoti Uchati. This means that the bhikkhu who is calm in body, in action, in speech and in mind, and also who is well composed in the Dhamma, who has let go of worldly matters, is called a peaceful one, peaceful bhikkhu. And I reflect this from the character of Venerable Thich Hanh, and what the Buddha said about the bhikkhu in this verse is really meaningful with the life of Venerable Thich Hanh. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante Jinyananda, for you have expressed yourself in such a way that it was the honest feeling. I think this is something that we all can incorporate into our life, especially the verse you have recited from the Dhammapada. And I think Venerable Thich Hanh has those. He's like, when he talks, he's very calm, and when he walks, he's very calm. And if he can walk and talk calmly, that means it's the mental reflection coming from the mind. So his mind was very calm. So I think we are practicing meditation for that purpose, to make our mind calm. And when we do something with a calm mind, everything becomes very powerful. So thank you so much for sharing your experience and with reflections on his teachings. Now we have Bhante Adisila, actually, who really met him at Plum Village and training. And I'm pretty sure, as we all are talking about Venerable Thich Hanh, there's so much going on in your mind. I think you would like to share more insights with us. Venerable Adisila.
Well, it's not so much what's going on in my mind, but when the Bhante was talking about the approach towards kind of saving the planet, his community is still engaged in that, and they go to the global conference. They're actively, I don't know if it's lobbying, but they're meeting with politicians and decision makers. They are very active in trying to uphold Thai's practice of using mindfulness to preserve our planet for future generations. So that was more what I wanted to comment on, because I really appreciated the Bhante for reminding us that many of his scholarly books point to clear solutions and guidance for our humanity. And so I really appreciated that. And I hope we can continue that practice and teaching. Some of the memorials I went to this last week were with people that even studied with him when he was a young monk, and they all said, "Oh, this monk, a young monk, is he's very smart. He's already writing textbooks that are, this thick, and he's just 22. He's very scholarly. He seems to know more than you would imagine that a simple monk would know and understand." And I just kind of wonder, at what point people are going to also embrace what his community believed, that we were in the midst of a living Buddha, a living awakened being that was willing to guide so many people. And I think, as a bhikkhu, I definitely say, yes, he was a monk, but I also think that he was something extraordinary in our time. And I don't know how long the debate's going to go on before people maybe come to the conclusion that, with over 500 active Sangha members, really an unlimited resource of books and videos. They have a compendium from all of his talks and videos that they can write 1,000 books. They can have videos go on for, pretty much years. So I think with that kind of resource, I wonder how long the debate will go on before people say, oh, this, if you're influencing for generations, you probably were in the midst of a living Buddha. That's possibly my opinion, but I think it's up for debate. I don't know how long we're going to debate it. Thank you. That's on my mind as well. It's like, was I in the midst of someone that was possibly, what we'll consider a type of Buddha,
Yeah. Well, the bodhicitta can be found in every being, right?
Yes.
I think that is also the key, the philosophy of the Mahayana tradition. Like, we all are bodhisattvas. We all are going to be Buddhas one day. So maybe we have to be mindful to find that the bodhicitta within the Buddha mind. So thank you, Venerable Adesila. Bante Kusala, you raised your hand. I'm pretty sure you have more positive things to say, more reflections.
Yes, I'm coming back not to argue with Bante Adesila here. Certainly not. I like that we all have the Buddha nature. So that's all I would say about that. So I'm kind of going back to the poem I read, and I think this part also should be included with it, because this can, teach us how we look at Buddhism and how we look at things that come our way from the world. Especially when this poem was written about, call me by my true name. So there's me, there's this sea pirate, and there's a girl who was raped by a sea pirate. So this girl, she jumped into the sea and she died. And the story of her came as a letter to Plum Village. And Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh sat in meditation and reflected deeply on it. And he thought, when we hear news like this, it's easy for us to take the side of the girl and take a gun and shot this pirate. But then he thought, if he was raised, if Thai was raised by a father who is a pirate, it's easy for him to become a pirate and also do the same things that his father did. So he started seeing that, we as educators, teachers, should see that in some areas of the world, people are trained to be pirates by people who have the experience of it. And we need to look at this as a real problem and, include that as part of our existence and teaching and the message of compassion. We can't take the side of anyone. We should have that worldview that these are us. These are people who are real people living in the world, raising families and, raising a generation of whatever they already are. So this really hits profoundly to us that, we need to be called by our true name. We are that pirate. We are that girl too. And we can be in that position, and we need to be given a little bit of love, a little bit of compassion, so that we see the wrongness of our actions and we stop doing them. Instead, we embody the love,
Mm.
compassion, and I think by doing so, our walk becomes slow, our presence become positive, and our life becomes so different. And also, I like to add two other things. You know, when Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh was told that he's not allowed to come back to Vietnam, he was in exile. You know, he was questioned. You know, how did you feel? He said, you know, I felt like I was dreaming about going home. I started dreaming about going home every night. You know, just this ordinary human being, you know, reflecting on, you know, when will I go home? So he finally did go home. I think some 36 years later. So he passed away in Vietnam. So he must have really thought about that deeply in his mind. And also when Martin Luther King was assassinated, you know, he was asked, you know, how did you feel about it? He said he felt angry. He felt angry because, you know, why people would, you know, people in the West should see him as a Buddha, and why did they kill him? So he couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep for a couple of days, and this is how genuinely he expressed his feelings and emotions. So I think this shows that he lived through these experiences and sufferings, and he also used them as a way of coming home, coming to his true nature. And he said one thing about his willingness to become a monk. And he was 12 and he reflected on that. And he said it is a beginner's mind. He had this burning desire to become a monk, and he said he still had it in his all his life as a monk. So the beginner's mind, something he kept alive in him. So we all have these callings to become a monk, and we always come back to that intention. And why are we monks? You know, why are we representing a certain tradition? And why do we really meditate? You know, what is the purpose of my existence in this world? So I think he is an exemplary monk in that respect. Thank you, Bhante.
No, thank you, Bhante Kusala, for sharing more honest reflections about Thich Nhat Hanh. And I think, as you said, he experienced the tremendous sufferings and pains of his own people. Now, maybe this is the kind of reflection we had to do. Like the heart of Buddhist philosophy, Buddha's teachings, is the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha made it very clear: the dukkha has to be experienced, the dukkha has to be seen, and then you have to understand what caused this dukkha, this suffering, this problem. And then he was of finding a way out of this problem. And then I think that's why he thought this is the best way to solve the problems. And that's why he extensively started talking about the mindfulness practices and other teachings. And so I say seeing the trouble, the problem, the suffering, the pain is the key. So I'm just wondering, we have Bhante Sanata Vihari from Hollywood. I'm just curious to know whether you have anything to say about the Most Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh.
Thank you, Bhante, and thank you to all the Bhantes and Ayas here. My respects. You know, I came across his teachings. I think most people who study Buddhism in the West come across him and the Dalai Lama. They're like, you know, the most famous Buddhist icons or images or teachers in the Western world and around the world. But I remember even in high school, I had a lot of Vietnamese friends, and, you know, he was kind of like a controversial. Yeah, you know, either my Vietnamese friends liked them or they hated him. Like, it was one of the two. There was no middle ground. because political reasons, and stuff like that. And then I remember listening to a lot of his talks on YouTube, and in one of my college classes, I had to read The Art of Communication, which was a very good book. And then I myself read Heart, Awakening the Heart, where he does a commentary to all the suttas. And I read his book on Satipatthana. And, I think all the Bhantes explained very well his contribution to the world. I think, all the scholarly work and all of that and all the books that he did, is great. But I think his biggest achievement was uniting people, and sharing love and showing the common humanity that we all have, this humanistic perspective, regardless if he was Buddhist or Catholic or atheist. Just on that alone, being able to unite people is such a great thing in such a divisive and tribalistic world and times, especially now more than ever. So I think, just that alone shows the mark of a great human being, of a great bhikkhu in this world. And I think that's what I really got from him, to focus more on how can we, as monastics, not only, focus on like promoting the Dhamma and taking care of our community, but focus on the common humanity and take the teachings in a secular way and expand it outside of our community and our temples, and see other people just like us, and work on that, humanistic perspective, and expanding our common human values and beliefs, and treating everyone equally. So I think, to me, that's like the most powerful work that he did, Bhante.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering whether any other venerables have any reflection about, our Bhante Nalaka from California. So I'm pretty sure you have more to share with us.
Yes. Actually, I'm in Arizona now.
Oh, I see.
I'm no
Okay.
longer in California, so an update. Yes, as you see, I recently switched over to Theravada, the reordination coming from Mahayana. And so that's another reason why I appreciate the great master Thich Nhat Hanh, is that he's always going back and forth, reconciling and harmonizing to the best of his ability the teachings of early Buddhism with the later Mahayana commentaries and wise sutras, the Diamond Sutra and so on, the Avatamsaka Sutra. And so I want to share from the heart of the Buddhist teachings. There's a passage, I really love the way Thich Nhat Hanh explains Paticca Samuppada. He calls it interdependent co-arising, not just dependent, interdependent co-arising. And so I highly recommend chapter 27 of the Heart of the Buddhist Teachings. And this passage begins, sometimes when the Buddha taught interdependent co-arising, he began with old age and death and the suffering that accompanies them. In the sutras that do not include ignorance and volitional actions as links, the Buddha ends by saying that mind/body is conditioned by consciousness, and consciousness is conditioned by mind and body. The Buddha never wanted us to understand the 12 links in a linear way, that there is a line going from ignorance to old age and death, or that there are exactly and only 12 links. Not only does ignorance give rise to volitional actions, but volitional actions also give rise to ignorance. Each link in the chain of interdependent co-arising is both a cause and an effect of all the other links in the chain. The 12 links inter-are. And so a wise person can read the Mahanidana Sutta and the Kachanagota Sutta and put that together. The proof that someone truly understands a given subject is that they can explain it in their own words to anyone. And so from this, I want to move on to his beautiful dissection of the 5 precepts. Calls them the 5 mindfulness trainings. And I took them in 2018. And over the years, I've been reflecting periodically on these mindfulness trainings. The fact that he calls them mindfulness trainings. So to this day, I also view the precepts as mindfulness trainings, because you need them to have sammasati, right mindfulness, to enhance your mindfulness, which is what you need for sammasamadhi, the right concentration and unification of mind to harmonize the whole Eightfold Path simultaneously. So the undertaking the precept not to take life, he calls reverence for life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I'm committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world. Just this first mindfulness training will change the world dramatically. And also, I'm sure many of you have noticed that much of the Dhamma, the essential teachings of the Buddha, is right here. Non-attachment to views. Alaga, what is the water? The simile of the snake. Alaga Dupama Sutta. Non-attachment to views. If you don't catch a snake properly, it will turn around and bite you. If you grab it by its tail, you have to pin down the head. So here we see a lot of skillful, the Brahma Viharas are here. Cultivating openness, non-discrimination, non-attachment. The three poisons are here. So you see, just in this first mindfulness training, a deep understanding of Buddhism. He calls the second precept true happiness. If you are truly happy, then you won't exploit anyone. Then you will be against social injustice. You will speak out skillfully and mindfully against social injustice. You won't steal. You won't oppress anyone. You will practice generosity in your thinking and in our speaking and our actions. He calls the third precept true love. And he calls the fourth precept loving speech and deep listening. And the fifth one, nourishment and healing. And so without going into reading all of that out, that just shows you his synthesis of all of the different teachings you find in Mahayana and Theravada, the different understanding of the core teachings of the Buddha. He put all of that in a secular view. Someone mentioned here, one of the Bhantes, the Venerables, the secularization, being pragmatic. He secularized these teachings so that someone can practice them and not necessarily become a Buddhist and become a better human being, so that the planet will be more peaceful and more beautiful for all living beings.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter though you're a Buddhist or not. Holding
Yes.
people says has no. It's like a price tag, right? So the Dhamma, this gift can be used by anyone. It can be offered to anyone. The whole purpose of the Dhamma is to transform the life of the people from darkness to the light, from bad to good, from unwholesome to wholesome, isn't it? So I think, of course, the most venerable Thich Nhat Hanh read all these sutras, I believe, and then he got the essence of those teachings, and he just put that into simple terms for the better understanding of the people, for the greater benefit of the people. So thank you, Venerable Naga, for sharing your reflections. Now, Bhante Jinananda.
Yes, Bhante, what you said at last is really interesting, and the thing I wanted to elaborate. Yeah, he is a very good monk who had gone to each avenues of Buddha's teaching in a simplest form and delivered it well. To me, he's a very good example. And what I wanted to talk in a simple way here is that his life is really, depicting what Venerable Sariputta did in his life. Venerable Sariputta was teaching the Dhamma to fellow monks and nuns, lay people, traveling all around where the Buddha traveled. And at last he understood that I should go to my mother, who is not a Buddhist yet, who is not a person who understands the Dhamma yet. So he went there and passed away into Nirvana. And Venerable, most Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh understood that he had done many things for the sake of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and lay people, and even people that never think, he reached those people humbly and taught the Dhamma of the Buddha. And he was there to end his life cycle. We never know what exactly he had in his mind, whether he is a fully enlightened person or not, or whatever. What he showed the world is that this is how one should live. For a bhikkhu, I have so many things to take from his life, that he spent a wonderful life. You know, difficulties, problems, suffering made people shine. That is what he exactly said. And in his book, he's letting go of, he talks about the Four Noble Truths. And when he talks about the First Noble Truth, he said that the Buddha, never come to that state if he, did not realize that there is a suffering. So that the suffering is not that bad. Suffering is not that bad for everyone at all. It would be the key factor for us to find light and happiness. So those people who are suffering from various problems, man-made and natural and karmic, be mindful what exactly Buddha said through his experience, and also most venerable Thich Nhat taught from his life that suffering would be the key factor for success. So to me, as a bhikkhu, we should read his life through the lights of the Buddha's teaching, not from any lens of overview or whatever, and we can find who is. And of course, the most important thing Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh expect from us is to follow the teachings of the Buddha with compassion, kindness, and there are many more we can do for this world from where he stopped. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Jirananda. We just have 2 more minutes to wind this up, and I would like to read 10 rules for life, and I think the most venerable Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized on these teachings, and of course, as we all know, he has authored more than 100 books, and he popularized the mindfulness practice in simple ways, and then he taught these teachings to the people from all walks of life and of all ages. So when we look at these 10 rules for life, I think these rules, although he call rules, but principles, maybe these are the principles that anyone can incorporate into their life. And the first rule is find your Buddha mind. And I think we all know that no matter who we are, we all have this Buddha mind, Buddha nature is here within us. We need to, if we can connect ourselves with that Buddha mind, we can reduce a lot of sufferings in the world, and we can become free from the world. The second rule, have compassion. And the third rule is stop seeking others' approval. And the fourth rule, be open to the mysteries of life. The fifth rule, transform your suffering. And the sixth rule, be aware of your body. And this seventh rule, keep to your convictions. Eighth rule, cultivate stability. And the ninth rule, get rid of anger. 10th rule, practice meditation. And I think these principles can be practiced or by anyone. And if you choose to do this, as Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh said, we can arrive and we can be at home. So lastly, it was his wish to go back to his home. I see he has arrived at home there, and he's resting at home now. So today, we monks and nuns living in North America wanted to express our gratitude to this great master. And by coming together like this, we were able to show our respect to him. So simply saying, thank you, Thai, for being there for us. Although he said goodbye to us, but he's still with us through his teachings. As Buddha said in Pali, Rupan jirati machanan namagotan najirati. The body decays, but the name and the tribe will never decay. So now the Thich Nhat Hanh, the name, the tribe, the plum village will never die because we have the teachings. So thank you, venerables, for coming and joining this discussion today to pay tribute to this great master. So let us wind this up by reciting the Ovada Patimokkha verses. So I would like to respectfully invite Bhante Uparatana from Washington, D.C. to recite the Gathas. Bhante, you have to unmute.
Thank you, Venerable Sarnapal. And today we had a very good Dhamma discussions about our Venerable, respectful, our monk, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. And that's time to pour the recitation. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada. Sacitta pariyodapanang etam buddhana sasanang. Kanti paraman tapotitikka nibbanam paramang vadanti buddha. Nahi pabajito parupagati samano hoti parang vihetayanto. Anupavado anupagato patimokkhecha sangvaro. Matanyutaca bhantasming pantanca sayanasanang. Ati citte ayo etam buddhana sasanang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante Uparatana, for beautifully reciting those Ovada Patimokkha verses from the Dhammapada. And it was beautiful. It was for mindfulness meditation practice for us. I'm very grateful to all of you. Thank you for coming together today to honor the great Master Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. And let us make just one wish. Whatever merits we made today through this discussion, and of course through this discussion we were able to purify mind and heart. With this pure mind and heart, with respect and gratitude, let us make one wish May our beloved Master, the Most Venerable Thich Hanh, receive all these merits, and may he attain supreme bliss of Nibbana with these thoughts in mind. Let's say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So thank you. I will see you all in 2 weeks' time again for our next bi-weekly Sutra discussion. Until then, all of you stay well and happy. Good night.
Bhante Rahula, I hope to see you maybe are you going to Camarillo? Bhante?
Oh, you have to unmute, Bhante.
I heard that Bhante Rahula might be going to Camarillo.
I'll be in California from September 8th to March 1st, and I'll be in Camarillo with Venerable Tapawani Suttadhara at his new temple, giving a retreat, a weekend retreat on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of February.
Okay, very good. I might try to see you then.
Okay. I'll also be at the Kovina, the new big Sri Lankan Vihara in Kovina on the 27th for a day of mindfulness.
Okay, yeah, that's a beautiful new temple. Oh, amazing. I hope to see you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Wonderful.
you, Bhante.
Thank you. Good night.